Hey guys, it's Britt, and today is Thursday. That means I get to talk about Game of Thrones. And for this edition, I wanted to do something slightly different. I wanted to compare the HBO versus A Song of Ice and Fire. If you guys like this, I might do more of these, but this is kind of like a test run today. So, in particular, I'm sure you've seen by the title and the thumbnail, but we're going to talk about the differences between HBO's version of Finding the Direwolf pups and the Song of Ice and Fire, A Game of Thrones version of Finding the Direwolves, because I originally didn't think that they were all that different, but I was thinking about it, and the two of them, while they're similar, I think that they are quite different in regards to tone, atmosphere. This is a point of view of Bran, so that really makes the main focus more on the Stark children in the book rather than the dire wolves themselves. So, before we get on, I wanted to show some pretty pictures in the illustrated edition. So, here. This is page 20. Isn't that pretty? And this is... Hold on. Okay. This is that black and white photo. Can you see it? Yeah. Alright. That's fine. Alrighty, so I will link the scene up here so you guys can watch it if you want. But in regards to tone, the HBO version really decided to go a much more darker route. Maybe because they upped the ages of the children, so they wanted to make it a little more mature. Bran is 7 in the novel, while in the HBO series he's 10. And that means that the eldest boys also have a certain level of maturity. I think there's a slight maturity difference in the books versus the show, just because the boys are older. Like, the whole Stark family plus Theon is older by a few years. So I think they used that to their advantage, and they changed this a little bit. So the one thing that really sets them apart, that they kept the same, which is really very little. They kept Theon's "it's a freak" line, but a lot of the dialogue that was in this scene was either said by different characters or omitted from the scene entirely, presumably for, time constraints. But anyway, let's get into this. If you have this leather-bound edition and you want to follow along with me, I'll be giving you the page numbers. So, page 16. That was when Jon reappeared on the crest of the hill before them. He waved and shouted down at them. "Father, Bran, come quickly. See what Robb has found." And then he was gone again. Jory rode up beside them. "Trouble, my lord?" "Beyond a doubt." "His lord," father said. "Come. Let's see what mischief my sons have rooted out now." All right. Then you skip a few sentences, and they found Robb on the river bank north of the bridge, with Jon still mounted beside him. The late summer snows had been heavy this moon turn. Rob stood knee-deep in white, his hood pulled back so that the sun shone in his hair. He was cradling something in his arm, while the boys talked in hushed, excited voices. The riders picked their way carefully through the drifts, groping for solid footing on the hidden, uneven ground. Joy Castle and Theon Greyjoy were the first to reach the boys. Greyjoy was laughing and joking as he rode. Bran heard the breath go out of him. "Gods!" he exclaimed, struggling to keep control of his horse as he reached for his sword. Jory's sword was already out. "Rob, get away from it!" he called as his horse reared under him. Rob grinned and looked up from the bundle in his arms. "She can't hurt you," he said. "She's dead, Jory." Bran was afire with curiosity by then. He would have spurred his pony faster, but his father made him dismount beside the bridge and approach on foot. Bran jumped off and ran. "All right. Blah, 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 freak." And then, on page 18, the key difference is who found the antler in the throat. This changed. And I don't know why they changed this, because I don't know. Do we know what killed her? "There's something in the throat," Rob told him, proud to have found the answer before his father asked. "There, just under the jaw." His father knelt and groped under the beast's head with his hand. He gave a yank and held it up for all to see. A foot of shattered antler, tine snapped off, all wet with blood. A sudden silence descended over the party. The men looked at the antler uneasily, and no one dared to speak. Even Bran could sense their fear, though he did not understand. Already. And then they kind of talk about killing the pups. Is it a good idea? There's a brief change of dialogue where, in regards to Theon, where Rob says, rather than "put away your blade," Rob says, "Put away your sword, Greyjoy." And I liked this because I was a show watcher first, and I liked how in the book it firmly established really early on that Theon was not a Stark family member. And I remember when I first started watching the show, I was a little bit confused about who Theon was, because he looked like a Stark to me. That made sense. He had brown hair, Rob had brown hair, Arya had brown hair. He just looked like a Stark to me, for whatever reason. So I liked that the book established this, that Theon was a ward. And I guess there was a subtle nod with the line, "I take orders from your father, not you." But my first watching, it took me a few episodes to figure out, hey, Theon isn't a Stark. But anyway. Alright. There's this bit with Jon where they're discussing that there's no pup for Jon. And this was a key moment in defining Jon's character, I believe, that they omitted. "You want no pup for yourself, Jon?" he asked softly. "The direwolf graces the banners of House Stark," Jon pointed out. "I'm no Stark, father." And they kind of did this, but they didn't at the same time. Bran says, "What about you?" And Jon says, "I'm not a Stark." So. And then the last thing I want to point out is on page 20 and 21. Halfway across the bridge, John pulled up suddenly. "What is it, John?" their Lord Father asked. "Can't you hear it?" Bran could hear the wind in the trees, the clatter of their hooves on the ironwood planks, the whimpering of the hungry pup, but John was listening to something else. "There!" John said. He swung his horse around and galloped back across the bridge. They watched him dismount where the direwolf lay dead in the snow, watched him kneel. A moment later he was riding back to them, smiling. "You must have crawled away from the others," John said. Or been driven away," their father said, looking at the sixth pup. His fur was white, where the rest of the litter was grey. His eyes were as red as the blood of the ragged man that had died that morning. Bran thought it curious that this pup alone would have opened his eyes, while the others were still blind. "An albino," Theon Greyjoy said with wry amusement. "This one will die even faster than the others." Jon Snow gave his father's ward a long, chilling look. "I think not, Greyjoy. This one belongs to me." They kind of did a subtle nod to this, where they, instead of saying, "This one will die faster than the others," they said, and "that one's yours. Run to the litter. That one's yours, Snow." But yeah, those are the difference, and I felt that this one was a little bit more lighthearted, for just because the boys seemed more excited to find puppies than it was this big, brooding, dark scene. And I'll go into this a little more in some of my in my next video, but I feel like HBO kind of wanted to make you sympathize with Theon early on, so they kind of made him less of an ass. And I love Theon. Theon is my favorite. If you're new to this channel, Theon is the favorite. But he is indefinitely has a tendency to be an asshole. And I think HBO also could have changed this because, like I said earlier on, they upped the ages of the Stark children, and because they upped the ages of the Stark children, they also upped the age of Theon a little bit, so I think Theon in HBO's version is slightly more mature, just like Robb and Jon are. But they still kept those assholey elements, but you have to remember that Theon is a teenager here, and teenage boys tend to be little jerks. They're generalizing, but yeah, they definitely tried to make Theon a little bit more likable in this scene, I think. So that's all for now, guys. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.